9 minutes before 7 o'clock, it is on Morning Live, and a very warm welcome back. Well, according to reports, cyber attacks are increasing at an alarming rate. In 2015, more than 500 million personal records were stolen or lost due to cybercrime. Since then, phishing, a form of cyber fraud, increased to 55%. In 2014, South Africa had the highest number of cybercrime on the African continent. In the same year, the country lost 50 billion rand in cyber attacks due to phishing messages and opening attachments. Now, joining us this morning is Jim Green, the Chief Technology Officer at Gold and Links Cyber. Jim, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Now, who conducted the report with these shocking statistics?
There's been a number of reports conducted. One recent report that I happened to see was conducted by a large antivirus and multinational company. And they studied 18 countries around the world, of which South Africa was one. And they reported last year alone 8.8 million South Africans admitted to being cyber attacked in one form or another. And their direct costs were over R1 billion. So it's very serious, and it is definitely increasing.
Yeah, as you say that the level of cyber attacks has come to critical points. So who is mostly targeted here? And I would imagine the corporate world is the most vulnerable, isn't it?
Well, it's the corporate world and the private citizen. Let's call them the end user. If we think we live in a digital economy, everybody is increasingly getting connected, whether it just be your smartphone, it can be anybody from the poorest person with just a basic phone through to users of really sophisticated computers, to businesses, to government. Everybody is in the sights of cyber criminals.
Can you now give us examples of which cyber attacks are prevalent and how people are lured to it?
Well, as you mentioned earlier in your introduction, probably phishing is one of the greatest areas of cyber attacks. You know, there are really two main groups of people that the cyber criminals are attacking. One is the private citizen or the individual. We would call them the end user. Now, the end user is typically a person with some device, and they have some personal information to attack. And the type of attack there is, in a sense, what you could call a broadcast attack. So phishing would be crafted, say, for instance, a crafted email that looks like something that's familiar to many people, like, for instance, a fake false Facebook notification. And you click on the link, and the next moment you find is that you've authorized some piece of software to run on your machine that either steals your credentials,
and
steals your identity.
It does look
and
legit.
It does it instantly. The moment you have clicked that link, it's in.
Yeah.
It's in microseconds.
Yeah.
And you either lose your banking information, your passwords, or you get something installed on your machine that you're not aware of, and your machine unknowingly participates in other types of attacks. We call that bot attacks.
Whoa. Right. Now, that we don't have a cyber security policy in South Africa is sufficient enough to further make this crime thrive, isn't it?
Well, I think we must not have false hopes in a cyber security policy. A policy is very important to have because it helps a nation coordinate its resources to deal with mass attacks. But the issue is when the attack happens, you as the individual are the first person who's going to be on the receiving end of that attack. And what you do in that moment, before the policy can mobilize resources to deal with it, the attack has already happened. So it's very important to coordinate national assets and policies to respond to that type of thing. But at the end of the day, the individual and the businesses have to be prepared to deal with the attack because they are at the front line.
What then is the purpose of firewall and antiviruses when so many people lose personal information to cyber attacks?
Well, firewalls, antivirus deal with a certain percentage of attacks, particularly where the attacks are known. And in the case of firewalls, they look for certain things in internet. Well, let me back up. In the internet, what happens is messages are sent in packets. And actually, this is a collection of data bits. It arrives on a firewall, and a firewall will inspect it and say whether this looks like it's legitimate or not. If it considers it to be legitimate traffic, it passes through into the system, like to the website or to a mail server. So it will screen out a percentage of attacks. Antivirus typically will screen out about 20% of the type of attacks that you have. The problem is the other 80%.
So one may argue that had it not been for these cyber attacks, we would not have been exposed to such transgressions by authorities such as seen in the Panama Papers or the WikiLeaks, for instance. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, one could draw some conclusion in that area, but I think the damage of cyber attacks far outweighs the types of benefits that we get. And business preparedness is this is our speciality as Golden Links, is we've been operating about 20 years internationally in some of the most attacked countries in the world, like Israel, Singapore, and some of these other areas. And the experience that we're bringing is we're finding that internal to businesses, the type of information that your systems provide you with alerts in terms of activities happening. But you can imagine sitting there and getting in the region of 2,000 to 4,000 messages a second from your infrastructure. How do you understand what it's actually saying to you unless you have specialized equipment and trained resources who can analyze that and provide the support to say, am I actually being attacked?
All right, Jim, tell you what, we need the whole day to be discussing this, but then unfortunately we haven't got much time. But then thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the viewers.
All right, now there we have it, chilling facts about cyber attacks. And for more information on this, visit Gold and Links Cyber's website at www.gnlcyber.com, www.gnlcyber.com. Well, this is Morning Live. We'll be back right after this.